begin with a small brain teaser. It's a quote from one of my favorite artists, John Denver. The man who wrote, "Take me home, country road." But that's relevant. The quote itself goes as, "When I think that I'm moving, suddenly things stand still. I'm afraid because I think they always will." What is it that's been described in this quote? An unexpected projected force preventing you from moving forwards? Perhaps an invisible wall standing in front of you, not letting you go through? Well, there could be many points of views on this. However, I, myself, see it as doubt. That invisible mental barrier preventing us from moving forwards. Hello, my name is Artem Polovinkin, and today I'll be talking about doubt. Specifically, talking about doubting our abilities and why we even do that. So let's begin. Now, doubt can be found in many shapes and forms, ranging from fear to uncertainty. It's that little feeling, little sensation at the back of your head, whispering and wiggling something like, "Are you sure you're up for the task? You sure that math test is not too hard for you? Or, I bet you will fail like you failed last time." Many people, including myself, find it rather scary. What if I fail? What if I make a mistake? However, I always wondered why. Those sort of physical barrier, it truly limits the scope of what I, your artist, can do. So how can it possibly be overtaken? Well, I'm a math person myself, so I like to oversimplify things. I will apply the same philosophy in this task, therefore I will make a small bullet point list in order to narrow down and unravel whatever we're trying to find. So, what do we perceive as doubt in our abilities? Well, we can definitely see it as fear or hesitation of our actions. We can also see it as an anxiety, which arises in both stressful and in your regular day-to-day life, decision-making. And it's a build-up stress, tension, that will constantly keep stretching and stretching the more mistakes you do. Now, on one hand, doubt stimulates us to reconsider untrustworthy decisions. In fact, a study, The Adaptive Nature of Doubt by Paul Harris and Margaret Korewa, has truly researched the fact of doubt serving as a natural way for us humans to refine our beliefs, leading to more accurate knowledge over time. Therefore, doubt is good. It's just that the quantity that we should control. On the other hand, regular occurrences, sometimes even on a daily basis, showcase one of the main issues with doubt. It's our habits. Creeping thoughts infest our mind before we can actually think about them. We take self-harming thoughts, ideas, emotions close to our heart. When our overwhelming sea of thoughts is uncontrolled and tipped off by that doubt, that's when it becomes an issue. Well, since doubt is a huge equation of different emotions and thoughts that we have, of habits, we can't possibly eradicate every single one of them. It would be too hard. Therefore, I believe we should apply a very simple and tested out method. If you can't defeat it, lead it. We should establish control of the formation of doubt in order to hold it in its place and counter it if there is too much of it. Now, I think it's impossible to talk about doubt and habits without actually understanding what habits are. Therefore, let's expand on them a bit. We humans love to commit ourselves to daily routines, to habits. In fact, it's really easy to obtain one. If you go to your local coffee shop and order yourself a double espresso, then come again next day, you won't even notice the fact of coming to the same coffee shop, ordering yourself the same double espresso, talking to the same barista every single day in a row for 4 days, maybe even coming for another cup on Friday. In return, we sometimes get a thing called force of habit. Essentially, just a pattern that we drew out on a piece of paper in our mind, like this one, that we decided to repeat. We drew it out and squashed it up all together and threw it at the back of our mind. As soon as that little habit, as soon as that pattern exits our front and goes to the back of our mind, we don't think about it anymore. It's a habit from now on. As soon as it's there, it transforms into a seed that will constantly grow and grow its roots into you, deeper and deeper. And the more you have it, the more it will grow until it's a full-fledged tree of a routine. Those trees of habits make up a massive forest in our mind that we constantly have to follow every single day. Now, habits are pretty useful since you don't have to constantly relearn how to talk, walk, drive a car, ride a bike every single day. We need those habits to grow their roots into our mind. We don't want to get tired of learning every single day. This is a great thing about habits, as we don't have to constantly bend ourselves. However, this is the same reason why doubt can infest literally anything and anybody. As soon as there's a little seed in you, it will grow its roots deeper and deeper until you're fully controlled by it, until that poisonous environment will force you to bend towards it. Now, how can we fight them? When was the last time that you tried to fight your habit? I bet it was really hard, since as soon as you try to get rid of those roots and try to uproot them, they will fight back. They don't want to get uprooted. They want to stay with you. They will constantly try to fight back. Therefore, in order to actually uproot that tree, you have to take it out of your back and bring it back to the front to cut it. You have to constantly challenge that habit. You have to constantly provoke that habit. This uprooting might take you a day, a week, a month, a year, maybe even more than that. For example, my mother decided to get sugar out of her life. Therefore, she decided to simply stop eating it. It took her about a year to get rid of that little nagging feeling of going to the kitchen and grabbing herself a cookie before walking out. Or another kind of habit, for example, like smoking, which is even more complex to fight, as you have to constantly battle out both psychological and physiological effects on your body. Now, it's not like fighting a habit is impossible, is it? We definitely know that to fight a habit, we just have to constantly commit ourselves to not doing it. However, another vital factor to consider when fighting it is our environment. Let me give you a more realistic example. You can't possibly commit to eating sugar without having it around yourself. Therefore, if you don't want to eat candy every day, just don't have it around you. Make your environment in a way that you can never commit to a habit you don't want. Now that we know some things about habits, now that we're a bit educated on habits from these simple deductions, how can we use it in our advantage? That doubt, how can we use it in an advantage when fighting against it? I think it comes back to simplicity, as the most simplest answers usually tend to be the most useful ones, as they won't break apart. They are not complex mechanisms that will constantly try to go out of order. So, what can be used against that voice? What does it tell us? What if you fail? What if you make a mistake? What if you fail again? What if you make a mistake? What if you failed again? What if you did again? Dun, 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 dun. It all comes back to, what if you fail? What if you make a mistake again and again? That little voice uses our mistakes against us. Mistakes is the answer. Our dreadful habit, that little thing, that little mosquito that lurks in the darkness and tries to bite us, uses our habit of thinking of mistakes in automatically a negative light against us. We constantly expect a sort of punishment for any slightest failure we ever do in our life, ranging from adding a little bit too much salt to our soup before serving it to the guests, or something as simple as asking a question in class or your meeting. Mistakes, big or small, we're always saddened by them. It's not a rare occurrence because from an early age, we're taught about two sides of a coin, success and failure. It's just black and white. You have either absolutely failed at your task and will now fall into the abyss of darkness, or you have absolutely succeeded and you can go on with your life. I believe this is the fundamental issue, as mistakes should not be seen as the ultimate failure. They should be cherished. It's absolutely impossible to learn how to shoot a bow or drive a car or swim without actually going out there and making a bunch of mistakes. As we humans learn the most from our personal experience, we must be brave enough to open our chest to all of the failures and go out there and make them. If mistakes are to be considered as a learning process, those thoughts will be simply swept away. As even if you failed, you tried and you learned, therefore you will succeed in your next attempt. Not doing anything is a failure, as it will constantly strengthen that little voice, as it will constantly add on to that power. That little voice will take those bricks of mistakes and make a wall in front of you. That invisible wall, that wall that you will constantly run into. And the only way to break it is to use your motivation, to use your bravery, to punch it, to run through it. However, isn't there a simpler way? I like to oversimplify things, so how can we simplify it even more? Well, as we already discussed, there are two types of fighting against our habits. One being the direct one, in this case the bravery of going out and doing it, which is challenging and provoking the habit, while the other way is to change our environment. Therefore, what acts as environment with that voice? That voice itself is the environment. That voice itself is the thing that poisons us, is the thing that constantly tells us that our failure is the ultimate one, as if it's the end of the cliff. So why do we listen to that voice? Our brain is so complex that modern scientists still don't know how it completely works and operates. Therefore, why do we listen to that specific voice? We have countless emotions, thoughts, ideas running through our mind constantly. Therefore, why do we listen to that specific one? We always have something else to listen to. This interpretation of having different voices that you have to empower constantly can also be referred to as inner critic and inner coach. Those are two most contrasting ones that will constantly keep fighting in you. One being the critic, who will constantly scream, nag, whisper right in your head, the one that you already know of. And the other one being the coach. A person who will constantly tell you to improve on your mistakes. A person who will take those bricks of mistakes and not make a wall out of them. That coach will make a staircase so that you can constantly go up instead of constantly being stopped. Your bravery and motivation will never be enough to absolutely decimate doubt. Why? Because that critic will constantly keep making more and more walls. Your bravery might break 1, 2, 3, 4 walls, but that critic will make more and more. However, the coach will never stop you. The coach will always encourage you to go forward. Therefore, it will constantly boost your motivation. You, and only you, can decide which voice to listen to. You, and only you, can decide which voice gets empowered, which voice you absolutely follow, which voice gets to bend your environment. It's like choosing a way on this compass. You can choose the way. And it's about you, when you fall down and make a mistake, to encourage yourself, or to let that voice of critic to nag you again and again. Empowering the little voice of coach will ultimately lead to greater motivation, as you will constantly try to move forward instead of being stopped at every location as you go. This stress coping tool, combined with bravery itself of going out and doing it, is an effective way to overcome doubt. As again, even if you failed, you tried and you learned. Therefore, you will succeed in your next attempts. Doubt is a wretched monster, especially doubt on your abilities. However, we're not scared of it because it's actually powerful, because it has anything to actually offer on the table. No. We're scared of it because we're reluctant to commit ourselves to passions we have. As soon as we encounter that mistake, or another mistake that keeps tripping us over, coach yourself to see both sides of the spectrum, since every human and every action you ever make has some value to itself. Even the most diabolical thing you could have ever done in your life has something to be extracted from it. Therefore, be brave to go and make that mistake, and have a coach who will take that value out of it. Always be brave. Our ability to adapt, to shape our environment, both inside, mentally, and outside, has brought us from an early age of stone kind to the current ChatGPT era that we're having. Therefore, never be scared. Always go out there. And never doubt your abilities. Thank you.